everyone, how's it going? Mike here, and today we're going to be doing a set review for the Red Flash and the Blue Impact sets, which we will be receiving this November. So there's some very cool new mechanics coming out with these sets, namely known as the break mechanics, which I'll be discussing shortly and sort of my mixed feelings about it. But with that, let's go right ahead and, well, sorry, actually before we dig in, I do want to mention that I'm not going to cover every single card. I'm going to cover the cards that I feel are competitively viable and my personal opinions about them. So I'm a pretty experienced player, so I would like to think that I have a pretty good understanding of a lot of the new cards that we'll be getting, a pretty strong understanding of their strengths and weaknesses that we will be seeing. But keep in mind that I may actually accidentally skip over some cards, or I may accidentally overlook some cards that may actually have some competitive potential. So if I do that, please forgive me in advance. I'm really sorry about that, but you can go right ahead and correct me in the comment section down below. And yeah, so that is going to be it. With that, let's go right ahead and dig in. So the first Pokemon that I feel really needs a bit of discussing is the entire Chestnut line. But I mean, Chespin is it's a pretty terrible Pokemon, so I'm not really going to discuss it. The only reason that I'm mentioning it is because it does ultimately evolve into the Chestnut, and the Chestnut eventually evolves into the Chestnut Break. So Chestnut Break is very cool. So essentially what it allows the Chestnut to do, and that's actually a pretty fantastic looking card, but I feel like it sort of loses its value in that all of the other break cards are in a golden color as well, and some of them are pretty downright terrible. But anyways, first of all, you can see that this card is sideways when you play it, so you can go right ahead and lay it on top of your normal evolution cards, which I think is really cool. Again, I feel like the gold is sort of overused with every single Pokemon. I felt like it would be nice, just have some silver, bronze, different shades of colors. But anyways, aside from the looks, Chestnut would normally be a completely unplayable Pokemon, but I'll actually discuss why it can actually be playable in certain instances. So first of all, Chestnut, if it wasn't hard enough for you guys to bring out Stage 2 Pokemon, bringing out a this is essentially Stage 3 Pokemon, is almost next to impossible in a game, unless, of course, you get very lucky or your opponent is not running a sort of a very highly disruptive deck. But luckily for us, the Chestnut with the Break, well, Chestnut Break, I guess, kind of not really sure how to pronounce it, but anyways, Chestnut Break has 190 HP, which is very nice actually. It is quite bulky, powerful enough to take on a lot of EX Pokemon. Actually, it has more HP than the majority of EX Pokemon that we will be encountering, and the only reason why it's potentially a viable Pokemon is because it is able to take advantage of the Forest of Giant Plants. I mean, if the Forest of Giant Plants was not available, then Chestnut would be pretty much useless. So Chestnut is one of those break Pokemon that essentially got a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory because of its typing. So Chestnut, well, any actually break Pokemon are really cool because they are able to retain the attacks, abilities, weaknesses, resistance, and retreat costs of its previous evolutions. Definitely, I think the most outstanding part of it is that they're able to retain attacks and abilities. So that is really cool because Chestnut can go right ahead and make usage of other attacks because, as you guys can see, it's attack that allows us to hit for 160 damage. So the Tough Hammer attack, first of all, it's very energetically expensive, and then second, it inflicts our own Chestnut with 30 damage. On top of that, though, it does allow us to hit each of our opponent's bench Pokemon for 30 damage, so that's actually kind of nice. But again, very energetically expensive. So that can be quite difficult to set up, but luckily for us, we are able to retain the attacks of our previous evolutions. And some notable attacks from the previous evolutions, I feel like one of them worth mentioning is the Quilladin's Pin Missile attack. I mean, it requires a total of 3 energy cards. 2 of them must be grass in order for us to be able to make usage of this attack. We flip a total of 4 coins, and this attack does 40 damage times the number of heads. So not too bad. I mean, on average, we get about 80 damage whenever we do attack. So that's not bad. I mean, give or take, of course, sometimes we get unlucky and maybe we hit for 40 damage. Sometimes we may even hit for 0 damage. Sometimes we can actually hit for 160 damage. So Pin Missile is a pretty nice attack. Definitely an attack that we can take advantage of with the Chestnut Break. Then, of course, we have the Chestnut, which also has 2 decent attacks, I guess you can say. So Horn Piercing, I think, is somewhat notable. I mean, it hits for 60 damage, but if our opponent's active Pokemon already has any damage counters attached to it, and again, keep in mind that whenever we do make usage of the... Sorry, let me actually bring that down so you guys can take a look at the Chestnut properly. So, again, keep in mind that whenever we do attack with the Chestnut Breaks Tough Hammer attack, we're inflicting 30 damage upon each of our opponent's bench Pokemon, so that will often mean that we can then go right ahead and finish off a lot of Pokemon by using the Horn Piercing Lariat attack. Mouthful of a name, which allows us to hit for 120 damage. Of course, with a Muscle Band, that could be 140 damage. So that's actually pretty nice. And then we have the Eternal Press attack. Not that great. Again, very, very energetically expensive. I think for the most part we would tend to prefer using the Tough Hammer attack. But anyways, Eternal Press allows us to hit for 100 damage. And during our opponent's next turn, damage done to this Pokemon by our opponent's attacks is reduced by 20 damage. So Chestnut Break is definitely one of the break Pokemon that I actually think does have a bit of competitive viability, and that again is just due to the fact that we have the Forest of Giant Plants. So moving on, guys, we have some pretty not outstanding Pokemon, pretty terribly awful Pokemon. But then we can go right ahead and take a look at the Houndoom EX and the Mega Houndoom EX. The full art versions I think are absolutely fantastic for both of these cards. So Houndoom EX is a very cool EX Pokemon. It can actually be used in mill decks, so we can go right ahead and make use of the Melthorn attack, allowing us to discard the top 2 cards of our opponent's deck. Now, in all honesty, I'm not sure how many players are going to be using the Houndoom EX and taking advantage of the Melthorn attack. Now, the reason why is that Bunnelby essentially can do the exact same thing as Houndoom, and whenever a Bunnelby does get knocked out, we only lose a single prize card. Now, of course, there's some things about the Houndoom EX that can offset the Bunnelby. Of course, I mean, number one, the Houndoom EX does have 170 HP, so that can be quite difficult to knock out in a single attack, and I believe we are getting a Max Potion reprint as well, so we can then go right ahead and completely heal the Houndoom EX back to full HP, and again, that would make life a lot more difficult for opponents to be able to knock it out in a single attack as opposed to the Bunnelby. I'm sure some players are going to try and make a Melthorn strategy work regardless, but personally speaking, I would much rather make usage of the Bunnelby. And then of course the Houndoom EX has a second attack, allowing us to hit our opponents for 50 damage, and at the same time we're able to go right ahead and attach a Fire Energy card from our discard pile on to one of our bench Pokemon. So I think that is a fantastic attack. I mean, Houndoom EX is solid in pretty much every aspect. If it had 180 HP, he would really seal the deal, but of course, it seems like most playable EX Pokemon tend to have 170 HP, and of course, Houndoom EX does follow that trend. So, still a pretty outstanding Pokemon, definitely one of the better EX Pokemon that I do believe we'll be getting in this set. Then we have the Mega Houndoom EX, a pretty great Pokemon. As you guys can see, very colorful little card. It initially hits for 80 damage, Inferno Fang attack, but we can go right ahead and discard a Fire Energy card attached to this Pokemon, and by doing so we're able to inflict 80 more damage, so that is a total of 160. Of course, with a Muscle Band we are then able to go on to perform those big one-hit knockouts on the majority of EX Pokemon which we will be encountering. So Mega Houndoom EX is actually a fantastic Pokemon as well. Definitely think it's very solid. I mean, it's energetically efficient. We can take advantage of Blacksmith. There's a lot of fire support going on. Mega Houndoom EX I feel like is going to be a huge Pokemon, definitely one of the more playable Mega EX Pokemon which we will be getting with these upcoming sets. Now moving on, guys, we have the Simisear, which does evolve from the Pansear. Pansear is not exactly a fantastic Pokemon, but we have the Simisear, and I always forget the last one, but anyways, they all have pretty much the exact same attacks. So first of all, the Simisear has the Water Toss attack, allowing us to put 3 Water Energy cards from our discard pile back into our hand. We're probably not going to make usage of that a whole lot, but it also has the Hand Sling attack, allowing us to hit our opponent's Pokemon for 10 damage times the number of cards that we have in our hand. Now, that doesn't seem all that impressive, but keep in mind that the Simisear is a stage 1 Pokemon. We can go right ahead and pair them up with the evolutions. Also keep in mind that the N is no longer a part of the standard format, so it's actually really easy nowadays to get a massive hand and your opponent has a very difficult time reducing it unless they run a few copies of the Ace Trainer in their deck, and even so, they're only able to use it if they are losing the game. So Simis here, I feel like all of the Simis have a lot of competitive potential. Again, they can be paired up with the evolutions. There's also a whole ton of different ways of making use of them. I mean, you can run them in combination with Lucky Helmet, things like that. It's very, very easy to get a massive hand, so I feel like these cards are going to see a lot of competitive play. Definitely pretty outstanding Pokemon. So Hansling, these Simis, again, Pokemon that you should definitely be looking out for with the upcoming set releases. We have the Seaking, not all that impressive, but I do want to say that I think that its first attack could be good if it's used in combination with the evolutions, but it could be a little bit tricky to make this work. So first of all, we have the Wet Horn attack, and that's pretty much the only attack that I think is good. We also have the Assault attack, but I'm just going to briefly discuss the Assault attack first, just because it hits for 40 damage for a colorless energy, so that's kind of unique, right? And this Pokemon at the same time hits itself for 10 damage. The PokeBeach translators decided to get a little clever and say, stop hitting yourself, which I thought was pretty funny the first time I read this. Anyways, we have the Wet Horn attack. Now, it initially hits for 10 damage, but it also hits for 80 more damage if this Pokemon was healed during this turn. So think about it. I mean, if we use it with one of those evolutions and we're able to take advantage of one of our opponent's weaknesses, we can perform a massive 180 HP EX knockout. That's fantastic, but the potentially troubling aspect of making usage of this card is how exactly do we lower the HP of that Seaking so that we can then go right ahead and heal it back to full HP. So I feel like that's really the tricky part. I mean, Assault does allow us to hit ourselves, and then we can go right ahead and make use of the Rough Sea Stadium card, for example, to heal ourselves. But with only 90 HP, chances are that the Seaking won't be able to survive an attack. I'm sure someone's going to come up with a creative sort of way to take advantage of the healing and the Assault. I'm thinking it could potentially be paired up with the Gardevoir that we received in the Ancient Origin set, so the one with the Bright Heal ability, I believe, something like that. Anyways, it does allow us to heal our Pokemon for 20 damage per turn, and the way that we would inflict some damage upon the Seaking, I mean, it would most likely be, I think Team Magma's Hideout would be a pretty good option. Anyways, just a card that could have some competitive potential, but it does seem a little bit tricky for us to really be able to make use of it. Then we have the Staryu and the Starmie. Again, not really outstanding Pokemon, so I'm not really going to be discussing them. We have the Piplup, Primplup, and the Empoleon. Piplup and Primplup aren't really outstanding, so I'm not really going to discuss them. Empoleon always seems to have a fantastic print. I mean, Empoleon has always been a very playable card. I also think it has some pretty fantastic artwork, again, just in my opinion. So first of all, it has the Noble Power ability, and what it does is that as long as this Pokemon is in play, each of our basic Pokemon's attacks are able to hit for 20 more damage. So that is actually a really powerful ability. But I do want to actually compare it briefly to the Machamp from the Furious Fist set, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. Anyway, so that Machamp allows the fighting type Pokemon to be able to hit our opponents for an additional 20 damage. And at first glance, you guys may think, well, the Empoleon does the exact same thing. Who's really going to be running the Machamp anymore? No, that's not the case. The case is that Noble Power is restricted only to basic Pokemon, so please keep that in mind, guys. But of course, the Empoleon is definitely a card that's more playable with a lot of different types of Pokemon. So for example, it can be used with the very crippling Giratina EX. The Seismitoad EX may actually see some increased play as well. I mean, if we can get 2 Empoleons on our bench, for example, those Quaking Punches will be hitting for 70 damage. With a Muscle Band, that's 90 damage. So Seismitoad EX may just see a rise in popularity again. I just see a whole lot of competitive potential with these Empoleons. It also has a pretty powerful attack, I would say. Hydro Splash allows us to hit for 70 damage, only requires 2 energy cards. One of them does, however, have to be a water energy card, so Empoleon, just an all-around fantastic card. Definitely one that I, again, do believe will see a lot of competitive play. So moving on, we have the Abomasnow is not really a card that I want to discuss. The Magna Zone, though, is definitely a card that I want to discuss. It's pretty much like the Blastoise that we saw in the Plasma Freeze set, was it? Oh, sorry, the Boundaries Cross set. Anyways, Magnezone has a really great ability, Magnet Circuit, allowing us to attach as many Lightning Energy cards from our hand onto one of our Pokemon. So again, it could definitely be used in sort of a Archie's Blastoise sort of deck, but of course there's no such card for Lightning type Pokemon, so it's probably not going to reach the same popularity levels as we've recently been seeing with the Blastoise, especially in the expanded format. I mean, they seem to be dominating a lot of different types of decks. So the Magnezone has the Thunder Blast attack as well, but again, that's not really that outstanding. What's really outstanding is its fantastic Magnet Circuit ability. I mean, there's so many Pokemon that we can use the Magnezone in combination. One of them, for example, being the Mega Ampharos EX. We can use it with the Pikachu, the Raichu. We can use it with the Mega Manectric EX. Again, the combinations are pretty much endless. Magnezone is just a fantastic card. I'm really excited to see what sort of decks players do come up with. I mean, I know a lot of players have been discussing that they'd like to get some sort of Archie's type card for the Magnezone, but I mean, do you guys really want that to happen? I mean, think about it. Just think about how dominating the Blastoise was in the final match, where Jacob Van Wagner was facing Mies. I'm sorry, I can't actually recall his last name, but it was such a dominating deck. Absolutely crushed him. And now that players are very well aware of the competitive viability of the Blastoise, do you guys really think it would be that smart for the Magnezone to get a similar type of card? I'm not so sure. I mean, from a competitive standpoint, definitely it would increase the viability of the Magnezone a whole lot, but I think it would definitely stir up a bit of people getting angry, you know, saying, "Oh, you know, why are you making this card overpowered?" Anyway, sorry, I feel like I'm just babbling on at this point. So let's go right ahead and discuss some other cards. We have the Raikou, which is actually pretty similar to the Keldeo EX, with at least with respects to its fantastic Thunder Lance ability. It initially hits for only 50 damage, sort of like the Sacred Sword or Secret Sword that the Keldeo EX possessed, and then per additional Lightning Energy card that we have attached to this Pokemon, it can hit for 20 more damage. So for 2 Lightning Energy cards, we can hit for 90 damage, 3 Lightning Energy cards, that's 110 damage. Of course, this is meant to be a Pokemon to be used in combination with the Magnezone. There's no sort of doubt about that. I mean, it's the next card in the set. Also keep in mind that it has the Shining Body ability. So as long as we have a single Lightning Energy card attached to this Pokemon, we are able to reduce any damage done to it by 20 damage. So that's actually kind of nice. If we attach a Heart Charm as well, that can be a total of 40 damage insulation. It's a pretty bulky 120 HP, so it's actually a pretty nice Pokemon. So yeah, Raikou, definitely a Pokemon that I think we're going to be seeing a little bit of. I want to discuss the Mewtwo EXs. I mean, this set has gone absolutely crazy with Mewtwo EXs. There are so many different variations of Mewtwo EXs, Mega Mewtwo EXs. I believe there's a total of 10 in all to collect. I mean, that is absolutely insane. So first of all, let's go right ahead and discuss this Mewtwo EX. There's going to be another one that I'll be discussing. I believe that one is in the Blue Impact set. So this Mewtwo EX has the Blast Ball attack, allowing us to hit for 30 damage times the number of Psychic Energy cards attached to this Pokemon. So I definitely don't think it's as good as the X-Ball attack that we had seen with the Mewtwo EX from the next Destiny set. But still, it's a pretty nice attack. I mean, if we have a lot of Psychic Energy cards attached to it, we can inflict ridiculous amounts of damage, and at the very least, it's not dependent on the number of energy cards attached to the opponent's active Pokemon. Then we have the Damage Exchange, allowing us to switch the number of damage counters on this Pokemon with our opponent's Pokemon. So that's definitely a bit of a unique attack as well. I'm not really sure how often we're going to see players take advantage of the Damage Exchange. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, definitely kind of unique. So this is definitely the better Mewtwo EX of the two, in my respective opinion. You guys will get onto the. I'll be discussing the next Mewtwo EX, and I think you guys will sort of understand why, what I mean by that. So then we have the Mega Mewtwo EX. Again, this is definitely the better one of the two Mega Mewtwo EXs, in my respective opinion. So this one has the Psychic Infinity, allowing us to hit for an initial 10 damage. Plus an additional 30 damage for each energy card attached to both players' active Pokemon. So this is basically an X-Ball attack on steroids. Mega Mewtwo EX has a decent 210 HP. Definitely, again, one of the more competitive Mega EX Pokemon that I feel we're getting in this respective set. I feel like the other two Mega EX Pokemon from the Blue Impact set are almost unusable, to be honest. But anyways, so the Psychic Infinity will always hit for a bare minimum of 70 damage, because I mean, we do need a total of 2 energy cards to just be able to make usage of the Psychic Infinity attack. So Mega Mewtwo EX, I think, is a pretty outstanding Pokemon, but I feel like it can be pretty easily negated, because again, it does have that Psychic weakness. And as always, it seems like Mewtwo EX is the card that often tends to be used to counter a Mewtwo EX, and that seems to be sort of the continuing trend. So, anyways, this Mega Mewtwo EX I think is a pretty nice card. I feel like we're actually getting a lot of fantastic cards in this respective set. Now, Misdreavus is not an outstanding Pokemon by any means, but its evolution, the Mismagius, actually has a really cool ability, but I'm not really sure how many players are going to be running the Misdreavus just to make usage of this Pokemon's ability, because it doesn't have a great attack by any means. I mean, Deep Curse allows us to hit our opponent for 60 damage, and at the same time we are able to confuse our opponent's active Pokemon. So that's not really that outstanding, and of course it does require quite a bit of energy cards, but the Mismagius does have the Twisted Spell ability, allowing us to, whenever we do evolve the Misdreavus into the Mismagius, we are able to force our opponent to shuffle his or her hand into his or her deck, and then they are forced to draw a number of cards equal to the number of his or her remaining prize cards. So this can be sort of like an N mechanism, where our opponent is forced to shuffle again their hand into their deck and then draw a number of cards equal to their prize cards. So that can be kind of cool. Definitely a lot more reliable than the Ace Trainer. Again, Ace Trainer is very situational, but again, how many players are going to make room for both the Misdreavus and the Mismagius just to take advantage of the Twisted Spell ability? Personally, I don't think it's worth running. Again, I feel like it's going to eat up a whole lot of deck space, which can be used for a lot more important cards. I mean, if this was some sort of supporter card or something like that, of course it would be a whole lot better, or at the very least if it was a basic Pokemon, it would make it a lot more playable. So again, it does have a pretty fantastic ability, but I don't think a lot of people are going to go out of their way just to include this card in their respective decks. Moving on, guys, we have the Cresselia. I mean, briefly I want to discuss it. It has the My Way ability, which is somewhat cool, I guess, in case you do want to retreat this Cresselia freely, but its attack is pretty downright terrible. Again, My Way allows us to retreat for free if there's a stadium card in play, but who's really going to run the Cresselia when it only hits for 70 damage? It does allow us to heal 20 damage from this Pokemon, but again, requires too many energy cards. Personally, I feel like it's not a very playable sort of card. Then we have the Marowak line. Again, not very impressive Pokemon, but again, the Pokebeach staff decided to be a little bit funny. So we have the Impulsive Tackle, allowing us to hit for 50 damage. Then we flip a coin. If tails this attack, does nothing, and go cry to your mommy. Again, definitely a little bit funny. I do appreciate this type of humor, as well, of course, as long as the translation is ultimately correct, for the most part. Anyway, sorry guys, we have the Marowak. It actually has two pretty decent attacks. So first of all, we have the Snipe attack, allowing us to choose one of our opponent's Pokemon, and this Pokemon is able to inflict 30 damage upon that Pokemon. So that's not bad, can be useful in case we'd like to snipe out some badly damaged EX Pokemon, for example, or some Robo substitutes, things like that. So by all means, it's not a bad attack. And then we have the Bone Windmill, which I think is actually really fantastic attack. So it allows us to hit for 60 damage. And if our opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon EX, we can go right ahead and switch this Pokemon with one of our bench Pokemon. So this could actually open up a sort of Donphan-like strategy. Again, 60 damage doesn't seem all that impressive, but given the fact that the Cubone is, the Marowak is a fighting type Pokemon, we can then take advantage of cards such as the Fighting Stadium, the Strong Energies, the Sacred Ashes. I mean, fighting Pokemon have a lot of support, and Cubone is definitely one of those Pokemon that could potentially take advantage of it. Of course, Marowak, and of course we have the Marowak Break, which I think is actually really cool Pokemon. Again, as you guys can see, it has the gold sort of trimming. Ironically, it looks startlingly similar to an Alakazam in my respective opinion with respects to its face. But anyways, it has that fantastic little shiny bone as well. Marowak Break, of course, is able to retain the attacks, abilities, weaknesses, resistance, and retreat cost of its previous evolutions. And it has the Bone Revenge attack, allowing us to hit for 20 damage and an additional 40 damage for each prize card our opponent has taken. I mean, it's not a very reliable sort of attack, but it's definitely nice that this Marowak is able to retain the attacks of its previous evolutions, so we can definitely take advantage of Snipe to snipe out some of our opponent's bench Pokemon, and of course the Bone Windmill in case our opponent's active Pokemon is an EX Pokemon. So Marowak Break, actually not so bad, but again, it is a stage 2 Pokemon, but again, I feel like this is one of the playable break Pokemon that we are getting in these sets, because we can, I mean, it is a fighting type deck, so we can go right ahead and take advantage of cards such as the Karina, and that will easily allow us to bring out a lot of these types of Pokemon. So Murloc Break, again, one of the more outstanding break Pokemon that we will be getting. So moving on, guys, we have the Piloswine and the Mamoswine, which I'd like to discuss. Actually, I think the Piloswine is the better of the two respective Pokemon. So Piloswine has two different attacks. One of them is the push down, not all that outstanding, not really going to discuss it. And then we have the Footprints of the Herd attack, which I think is actually really powerful, especially if used correctly. So Footprints of the Herd allows us to hit for 30 damage and an additional 10 damage for each colorless energy in the retreat cost of each of our Swine Up, Piloswine, and Mamoswine in place. So immediately, I mean, this attack hits for 50 damage because this Piloswine does have a total of 2 retreat cost, and Mamoswine, which is a very bulky Pokemon with a total of 4 energy cards required to retreat, I mean, that can just significantly increase the total damage output of the Footprints of the Herd. Again, keep in mind that the Piloswine is a fighting type Pokemon and can take advantage of cards such as the Sacred Ash, Fighting Stadium, Strong Energy, things like that. So Piloswine does have it pretty good. Mamoswine, actually, I definitely think it's much worse than the Piloswine. I mean, of course, it has a lot more HP, but at least with respects to attacks. But luckily for us, we could also make usage of the Shrine of Memories, and that would allow the Mamoswine to take advantage of the Piloswine's attacks. Anyways, Mamoswine has the Thick Fat ability, allowing us to reduce damage done to this Pokemon by our opponent's fire and water type Pokemon by 30 damage, so that can be kind of nice, again, if we get a little bit lucky with respects to our typing matchup. And then of course we have the Primeval Roar attack, which allows us to hit for 80 damage. If we have a Stadium card in play, this attack does 40 more damage, and if our opponent has a Stadium card in play, that's definitely some unusual sort of wording that we don't tend to see a whole lot. But if our opponent has a Stadium card in play, this Pokemon is able to heal for 40 damage. Again, not an attack that can really allow us to get those big one-hit knockouts, so I'm rather unimpressed with this Mamoswine, but I am somewhat impressed by the fact that it is standing at a very bulky 160 HP. But again, this attack, I feel, just requires way too many energy cards for us to really be able to make use of it. So moving on, guys, we have the Glade. No, Glade's not that. Actually, no, sorry. Glade is actually a really good card. My apologies. So it is a stage 2 Pokemon, and it allows us to look at the top 5 cards of our deck and put them back into our deck in any order. So that is the Glade's special ability. Premonition. I mean, this can be really nice. I mean, allowing us to sort of control the flow of the game. Now, the reason why I don't think that this card is going to see a whole lot of play is because the Premonition ability is definitely much worse than the Swampert diving search ability that we already have, and we don't really see a whole lot of decks take advantage of the Swampert from the Primal Clash set. I mean, Swampert from the Primal Clash set is almost better than this Galate in almost every single way possible. I mean, again, it has the Diving Search, it has the Alpha Growth ability, allowing us to attach a total of 2 energy cards onto it per any given turn, and it allows us to search our entire deck and then put that card on top of our deck. So, unfortunately, I feel like Gallade is probably not going to see a whole lot of play. Again, it has the Fighting typing, so that can actually pay off in that we can take advantage of cards such as the Strong Energy, things like that. It has the Sensing Blade ability as well, which initially hits for 60 damage, but if we play a Stadium card, a Supporter card from our hand, which again is very unreliable. I mean, sometimes we can not have a whole lot of cards in our hand and we're just unable to make usage of a supporter card. But anyways, if we're able to take advantage of that, we can then go right ahead and hit for an additional 70 damage, so that's 130 damage. Again, Strong Energies, Fighting Stadiums, things like that. So Gallade could actually see a bit of play, and it's very energetically efficient, so that's actually kind of nice. But again, I definitely don't think it's going to see all that much play, just because the Swampert is a much better Pokemon in pretty much every aspect. Moving on, guys, we have the Zorua. Not an outstanding Pokemon, but we do have the Zoroark and we have the Zoroark Break, which I'll be discussing shortly. Let's go right ahead and discuss the Yveltal, a pretty cool Pokemon. It has the Fright Night ability, so as long as this Pokemon is our active Pokemon, all Pokemon tool cards have no effect. That that's a very cool mechanic, and I'm loving the artwork behind this Evilto. It also has a pretty cool attack, allowing us to hit for 60 damage initially. It doesn't require too many energy cards. You can often get it going for 2 turns. During our first turn we attach a Darkness Energy, during our second turn we attach a Double Colorless Energy, so it's not too hard for us to power up this Evilto, but it also allows us to choose one of our opponent's benched EX Pokemon and hit them for 60 damage as well. So I feel like this is actually a really cool card. It'll be interesting to see what types of combinations we see. We're probably going to see a lot more snipe decks, I feel like, in the future. I mean, there's actually quite a few Pokemon in the set that does allow us to target some of our opponent's bench Pokemon. And of course, we have the bats and things like that as well, for example. So it'll be interesting to see what people come up with respects to the Evilto. Then we have the Bronzor and the Bronzong. Bronzong always seems to have some pretty cool attacks. So we have the Pain Amplifier, which allows us to put 3 damage counters on each of our opponent's Pokemon that already have damage counters on them. Very energetically efficient attack. I mean, it only requires a Double Colorless Energy, then we can go right ahead and stack those damage counters. Would work absolutely fantastically well with the the Fortress, that allows us to stack damage counters on every single one of our opponent's Pokemon. So that's definitely kind of cool. And then we have the Knockaway attack as well, which allows us to hit for 70 damage. We flip a coin and we could potentially hit our opponent for 20 more damage. So this Bronzong is actually kind of cool. Bronzor though, not so much. So moving on, guys, we have the Mr. Mime. It's basically a reprint of the Mr. Mime from the Plasma Free set, but this time around the Mr. Mime has the Fairy typing, which is kind of cool, I guess. Not really sure if I prefer the Psychic typing or the Fairy typing. I mean, I don't think it personally makes a big difference because it's a very low HP Pokemon and it's quite easy to knock out in a single attack. So I feel like the typing doesn't make all that big of a difference. Again, it has the Bench Barrier ability, allowing us to prevent all damage done to each of our bench Pokemon by our opponent's attack. So that's kind of nice. And then it has the Juggling attack, but that is a pretty terrible attack, so I'm not really going to be discussing it whatsoever. We have the Aromatisse, definitely a pretty terrible Aromatisse. I do think that the artwork is definitely kind of cute though, but aside from that, it's not really a Pokemon that we're going to be using. I mean, you should always run the XY Aromatisse instead, as opposed to the Aromatisse that we'll be getting from this set. Then we have the Axew, again, not all that outstanding. I'm just going to stop when I feel like we've had some pretty cool Pokemon. So we have the Dodrio. This Pokemon is pretty decent, I guess. I mean, as long as it's in our bench, we're able to lower the number of retreat costs for our active Pokemon. Actually, sorry, I didn't mean to say decent. This is actually a very cool card. It can be used in pretty much every single deck, reducing the retreat cost of a lot of our Pokemon. So that's kind of nice. Furry attack, of course, isn't all that impressive though, so we're probably not going to be making usage of that. It is a stage 1 Pokemon though, so it can actually be somewhat difficult to set up, but it's not too bad. If it was a stage 2 Pokemon, we probably wouldn't see this Pokemon come into play at all. But given the fact that it's a stage 1 Pokemon, it can be used pretty well in decks that have those big, bulky Pokemon, bulky EX Pokemon, or just Pokemon that only have 1 or 2 retreat costs, and we'd like to be able to freely retreat in between them. So Dodrio is actually a pretty nice Pokemon, and I think that we're going to be seeing quite a bit of it actually in the near future, especially since we can't necessarily shut down its ability. I mean, Silent Lab doesn't effectively work to shut down this Pokemon's ability because it is a stage 1 Pokemon. We also have, well, the Hex Maniac would of course be able to shut it down, but that does ultimately count as our opponent's supporter, and potentially the Wobbuffet could shut it down as well. But I feel like this is a pretty great card actually, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of counters to its ability at the moment. So moving on, guys, we have the Staraptor. Not really a great Pokemon. I'm not going to be discussing that. We have the Heavy Ball reprint. This was a card that was printed in the one of the black and white sets, I do believe. It's been a while though, so I don't actually remember which one it was. This is actually a pretty great card. It can pretty much be an Ultra Ball for those very bulky Pokemon that have a total of 3 retreat cost. Sorry, a retreat cost of 3 or more, and yeah, so we don't have to give up any of our cards as we normally would when making usage of a card such as the Ultra Ball. So Heavy Ball is a pretty great card. We have the Assault Vest as well. I think it's just way too unreliable of a card to be used effectively. So I feel like players would much rather make usage of Hard Charm and things like that. So anyways, Assault Vest is a Pokemon tool card, allows us to reduce the amount of damage that the Pokemon that this card is attached to by 40 less damage from any of our opponent's Pokemon that have any special energy cards attached to them. So this can be sort of an interesting card to use in those Wailord EX Mill decks, for example. But aside from that, I don't see a whole lot of playability in them. So yeah, so I'm not particularly impressed. I don't think we're really going to be seeing a whole lot of this respective Pokemon tool card. Of course, we have the Spirit Link, so we have the Houndoom Spirit Link and the Mewtwo Spirit Link. That is, of course, to allow us to evolve those Mega EX Pokemon without us actually having to sacrifice a turn. We have Giovanni's Plans, which I think is a pretty great card. The full art version of it actually looks really nice as well, in my opinion. Giovanni is the traditional sort of bad guy in Pokemon, the leader of Team Rocket, the one that treats Jesse and James like pretty much complete garbage, and of course it has the cool little Persian. Anyways, Giovanni is a supporter card allowing us to choose from a total of 2 effects, so definitely something kind of cool. Somewhat falls along the lines of the Jurassic, where we have a little bit of options with respects to what we'd like to make use of. Anyways, one of those options is that we can go right ahead and draw until we have a total of 5 cards in our hand, and then the second one of them, which I think is kind of cool, is that we are able to allow our Pokemon to hit each of our opponents. We're able to allow our Pokemon to hit our opponent for 20 more damage to our opponent's active Pokemon. So that can be kind of nice, can be good to allow us to seal the deal. In case we fall 20 damage short, for example, from being able to knock out our opponent's EX Pokemon. So kind of a cool card. Not really sure how much we're going to see of it, but I think I'm probably going to run a single copy of it from every single one of my decks. I mean, it's definitely kind of nice. I mean, it can act as a draw supporter. Not a very good draw supporter, but still, it's a draw supporter. And of course, it can allow us to increase the total damage output of our opponent, of our Pokemon, and potentially allow us to get those big knockouts. And then we have the Burning Energy. Really great energy card. I mean, it is going to work well with any fire deck, especially with Pokemon such as Camerupt EX or the Mega Houndoom EX as well. So the Burning Energy, of course, can only be attached to fire type Pokemon. And as if this card is discarded by an effect of an attack, so for example, Pokemon such as the Camerupt EX, which forces us to discard those energy cards, at the end of it, well, we're actually able to go right ahead and reattach this card to that Pokemon after applying damage and effects from the attack. So that is very cool. I mean, Pokemon such as the Mega Houndoom EX, which force us to discard one of those energy cards, we don't actually have to discard any energy cards. We can go right ahead and send the Burning Energy into that discard pile, and then it's going to go right ahead and get reattached on to that Mega Houndoom EX. Of course, Camerupt EX can take advantage of this card as well. Lots and lots of very cool Pokemon, so I feel like this opens up a lot of unique possibilities for fire type Pokemon, especially since it seems like a whole lot of them do tend to discard energy cards whenever they do attack. Then we just have these sort of reprints. So here we have the full art version of the Houndoom EX and the full art version of the Mega Houndoom EX. Again, just 2 very beautiful cards. Loving the artwork behind them. And again, I feel like personally, I think these are going to be my favorite Mega EX and non-Mega EX Pokemon cards that we will be getting from the Red Flash and Blue Impact sets. Moving on, we have the Giovanni one as well, and the Mewtwo EX and Mega Mewtwo EX full art versions as well. Again, just some very cool cards. This Mega Mewtwo EX though looks like a big baby in my opinion. I mean, it just has a massive head, short, stubby little hands. Doesn't look all that menacing, but again, that's sort of my take on it. I still think it's a pretty cool card, but I'll definitely be getting 4 copies of it as well, of course. Yeah, just sort of wanted to point that out. I believe we have a Mewtwo EX as well in the set, which has atrocious artwork. But of course, we have the Giovanni's Plants again, a pretty great full art supporter card. Again, I feel like Giovanni is really sort of shown in all his evil. We have that dark little background, the evil smirk in his face, and the hands up in the air. And of course, finally, we have the Mewtwo EX. Again, I feel like this is pretty atrocious artwork. I mean, we have the gold border. I don't know, it's just a very awkward card in my opinion. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Red Flash set. So moving on, we're going to go right ahead and start discussing the Blue Impact set. Alright, so starting from the blue impact set, we've got the Pinsir. The only reason I want to point it out is because first of all, it's a pretty terrible Pokemon, no good attacks whatsoever. But Pinsir, again, the Pokebeach staff decided to get a little clever. Pinsir is unable to aim, and this attack does 20 damage to one of our bench Pokemon. At the same time, it only hits the opponent's Pokemon for 30 damage. That's pretty awful. Sorry, team. That's not going to cut it, Pinsir. You're probably not going to see any action in any deck whatsoever. Moving on, guys, we have the Simisage. Again, very similar to the Simisear that I had taken a look at. I believe it was Simisear. And yeah, so anyways, Simisage has the Fire Toss, allowing us to put a total of 3 Fire Energy cards from our discard pile back into our hand. And of course, it has the exact same attack as the Simisage, the Hand Sling, allowing us to hit our opponent's Pokemon for 10 damage times the number of cards in our hand. So I'm not really going to discuss it beyond that. I've already told you guys that I feel like this is a card that can be really powerful, very easy to bring out, not a whole lot of hand disruptors in the game at the moment. And of course, it can be coupled with the evolution. So moving on, let's go right ahead and take a look at some additional Pokemon. So we have the Vivillon, which I think is actually kind of a cool Pokemon. And for some reason, it opens up another page. So this is how the card is going to look. It has the Energy Color ability, allowing us to potentially search our deck for a basic energy card and attach it to one of our Pokemon. So we do have to flip a coin. It is a stage 2 Pokemon, but it's a grass type Pokemon. So again, I feel like that gives it a lot of feasibility, just because we don't need to run cards such as the Rare Candy. All we need is a Forest of Giant Plants out into play, and it's relatively easy to bring it out. So Vivillon, actually a pretty cool Pokemon. Not exactly a great attack, so I'm not really going to discuss that. It just felt like its special was something worth pointing out to you guys. So moving on, we have the Typhlosion as well. Typhlosion is not that powerful. I mean, it's alright. The Massive Eruption can actually be a really powerful attack. Could actually potentially force us to deck out though. So Massive Eruption allows us to hit 80 damage, and we discard the top 5 cards of our deck. This attack does 80 damage times the number of energy cards we discarded. Now, most decks tend to run approximately 10 to 15 energy cards, give or take a couple. If we discard the top 5 cards, chances are we will reveal at least one Fire Energy card, which is actually pretty great. So this can actually be a pretty playable Pokemon. Again, the fact that it's a stage 2 may make it a little bit difficult for us to bring it out, but it's actually not bad by any means. Again, it can be a little bit risky, so maybe running a Pokemon such as the Swampert, or potentially this card can be used with the Glade that allows us to look at the top 5 cards of our deck. It can really give us an idea of the next few cards that we have in our deck, and then whether or not we should proceed with this attack or instead make use of the Flare Destroy attack, allowing us to hit our opponent's Pokemon for 130 damage, and at the same time we discard an energy card attached to this Pokemon and an energy card attached to our opponent's Pokemon. Now, this could of course be problematic, because then we'd have to go right ahead and attach energy cards all over again to the Typhlosion. But keep in mind again that there is the special Fire Energy card that we got, I believe Burning Energy. My apologies, I can't recall the energy card correctly off the top of my head. But anyways, we can go right ahead and make use of that. So it can also be a very powerful energy disruptor sort of Pokemon. So yeah, it's actually pretty solid. Yeah, so 150 HP, quite bulky, can definitely take a couple of attacks. A pretty massive retreat cost, but that shouldn't be too problematic. It's to be somewhat expected of these big, bulky Pokemon. So yeah, so it's actually pretty great. I'm sure we're going to see a bit of action from the Typhlosion as well. Probably not so much competitively, again, because it does require quite a bit of setup, but Massive Eruption can definitely be a very cool attack. We have the Octillery, which is basically like an Electrode, but slightly better. So the Electrode, of course, that I'm referring to is the one from the Plasma Freeze set, or was it Next Destinies? Anyways, what the ability that the Electrode had was that it allowed us to draw cards until we had a total of 4 cards in our hand. This one seems to be a little bit better. It allows us to draw until we have a total of 5 cards in our hand. So definitely a very playable card. I mean, it can work as a fantastic draw supporter, very easy to summon. Actually, I think a lot of decks are going to probably start running this. I mean, it's great. It's almost like a Shaman EX every other turn. Well, every turn, actually. So it does, of course, allow us to draw 1 card less than the Shaman EX. Definitely not as big of a liability. Slightly harder to summon because, of course, it is a Stage 1 Pokemon, but still, very playable Pokemon. It's awesome that we are getting these sort of draw supporter cards. I'm not sure if this is a little bit OP though, because I mean, the Electrode was pretty good as well, allowing us to draw until 4 cards. This one allows us to draw until 5 cards. I feel like that is actually pretty big. So Moving on, we have the Glalie EX. Again, I'm not really digging a whole lot of the EX Pokemon from the Blue Impact set. So again, it opens up another window for whatever reason. But the Glalie EX has two attacks, so one of them is the Ice Breath attack, allowing us to paralyze our opponent's active Pokemon if we flip a heads, and then it has the instant cooling. Not too difficult to set up. I mean, it only requires a single water energy card, and a double colors energy would work just as well, so that's definitely kind of nice. It initially hits for 50 damage, and if we have the same number of cards as our opponents, this attack allows us to hit for 100 more damage, so that's actually pretty strong. I mean, we can hit for 150 damage. It's by no means difficult to lower the number of cards to be the same as our opponents, unless, of course, they're running some sort of deck that just makes usage of a whole ton of cards, such as the Lucky Helmet and things like that, and it's very, very difficult for us to catch up. So instant cooling, actually, I think it could be a very playable card. Again, with a Muscle Band, we can hit for 170 damage. Lacking a little bit, but we could, of course, run some bats, some fortresses, things like that to make up for the difference. So, Glalie EX, not too bad, but of course, the main purpose of the Glalie EX is that it does ultimately evolve into the Mega Glalie EX, a massive, massive behemoth of a Pokemon. Again, it only requires a total of 3 energy cards, so that's definitely kind of nice. It initially hits for 100 damage, and if there are 10 or more damage counters on this Pokemon, this attack allows us to hit for 150 more damage. So that is very powerful. I mean, provided that Mega Glalie EX has 120 HP or less, we can go on and pretty much knock out every single Pokemon in the game, and that includes the Wailord EX, so that is pretty nice. But again, it is dependent on our our Mega Glalie EX being heavily crippled for whatever reason, which I don't really like. I mean, otherwise, we're only hitting for 100 damage at a time, which really isn't all that great. But again, see, this is why I don't really like this Mega Pokemon a whole lot. I mean, it seems to be too dependent on the situation, and ideally with these water type decks, I like running Rough Seas, and this can be really counterintuitive with a Pokemon such as the Mega Glalie EX. So moving on, we have the Simipour. Again, very, very similar to the other two Pokemon. I'm not really going to discuss it, just that its Green Toss allows us to look for the grass energies, and of course, it once again has the very creative hand sling attack. It's definitely nice because we have several different typings with each of these respective Pokemon. Moving on, we have the Vanillux. It has two attacks. One of them is the Shivering Press, allowing us to disrupt both ourselves and our opponent from being able to play any supporter or stadium cards from their hand. Now, this can be very, very interesting, especially if a player conjures a sort of deck that just runs heavily on item type cards, and then we go right ahead and repeatedly disrupt our opponent's ability from again being able to play any supporter or stadium cards from their hand. I'm not really sure how much playability this card is going to see. Again, it would of course be very, very powerful if it only disrupted our opponent's ability from being able to bring out any supporter or stadium cards, but it's a stage 2 Pokemon, first of all, very, very difficult to bring out. It disrupts our own ability to play our supporter cards and things like that as well, so I don't really think it's going to be seeing a whole lot of play. But again, the creativity of some Pokemon TCG players is really limitless. I mean, we've seen some incredibly outstanding strategies, especially with a Pokemon such as the Executor, which has the blockade attack, only hits for 10 damage, but people really know how to increase that total damage output. So I don't know, maybe I'm not analyzing this card correctly, but again, I don't really see a bright future for it. And then, of course, it has the Deep Frozen attack. Not that powerful, hits for 70 damage. Does require a total of, at the very bare minimum, 2 energy attachments, so that's not too bad. But anyways, we hit for 70 damage. We flip a Coins of Heads. We're able to paralyze our opponent's active Pokemon, and if Tails, our opponent's Pokemon happens to get confused. So Deep Frozen can be pretty good. I mean, especially because it can inflict 2 potentially deadly status conditions on our opponent's Pokemon. I mean, Confusion is very difficult. I mean, you never know whether or not your attack is going to go through or not. And then, of course, Paralysis prevents you from actually doing anything at all. So Vanillux can be decent, but again, I don't really see a very, very bright future ahead for it. Moving on, guys. We have the Haunter, which has the Gothic Fear ability. So this actually allows us to, before we attack, we could go right ahead and play this card to evolve one of our Pokemon. And by doing so, we can go right ahead and confuse both active Pokemon. So that actually includes our own active Pokemon. I don't know, like, I'm not really sure how to feel about this card. If there's some sort of deck that heavily relies on confusion, then this ability can be kind of nice. One of the Pokemon that I actually think that the Hunter might work quite well with is the Malamar, the promo Malamar, that whenever our opponent's Pokemon attack, they always flip a tail. So this Hunter could actually be playable, especially with that type of strategy. And then we can go right ahead and AZ them back into our hand and evolve those Ghastlies all over again, or potentially Super Scoop up them back into our hands. So I don't know, just something worth pointing out, but I don't really see a whole lot of strategies with it. Again, I'm interested to see what players ultimately come up with. Then of course we have the Gengar. I'm not really digging its first attack, so it allows us to poison our opponent's active Pokemon and place 1 damage counter on each of our opponent's bench Pokemon. I mean, what is nice about the Gengar, of course, is the fact that, number one, I love the artwork behind it. I mean, it really shows Gengar as being an evil little guy with its tongue sticking out, but it allows us to put 1 damage counter on each of our opponent's bench Pokemon. Very energetically efficient, only requires a single Psychic Energy card. Creepshow, though, is a fantastic attack, actually. I feel like it would work very well with the bat line. So if our opponent's active Pokemon has at least 3 damage counters on it, that Pokemon is knocked out. That's it, no questions asked. I mean, that is deadly, guys. It's very easy to stack those damage counters, move them around. I mean, we have Pokemon such as the Absol, which allows us to move up to 3 damage counters from one of our opponent's Pokemon to another one. We have Pokemon such as the Fortress, allowing us to stack damage counters. We have Team Magma's Hideout. We have the Bat. Just lots and lots of different cards that allow us to stack those damage counters. So Creepshow is actually a really cool attack. This may be one of the more playable stage 2 cards that we may be seeing from this set, so I'm very interested again to see what players come up with. And to top it off, it's very energetically efficient. It would only require us a single Psychic Energy card if we run the Dimension Valley alongside the Gengar. So I'm very excited for this card. Actually, it's one of the cards that I'm really hoping to showcase to you guys once these sets do ultimately come out. So now we have the Mewtwo EX. This is the one that I think is definitely worse as opposed to the other Mewtwo EX that I had shown you guys from the Red Flash set. So Photon Wave allows us to hit for 30 damage. It does require a double colorless energy attachment, and during our opponent's next turn, any damage done to this Pokemon by attacks is reduced by 30 damage. So not that powerful. I mean, the damage output is relatively low, so nothing outstanding there. And then it has another attack, Psycho Burn, allowing us to hit for 120 damage. Very energetically expensive. I think in almost all instances, guys, I'm probably only going to be running the other Mewtwo EX because it's better in, again, every single way possible. So I'm really not feeling this Mewtwo EX at all. Maybe this one can be used in combination with this Mega Mewtwo EX though, because this Mega Mewtwo EX is very energetically expensive. Again, I feel like this is the worst of the 2 respective Mega Mewtwo EXs. It has a Vanishing Strike attack, allowing us to hit for 150 damage, and if there's a Stadium card in play, we're able to inflict 50 more damage. What's nice, of course, is that this attack's damage isn't affected by resistance or any other effects on the defending Pokemon, so we're always going to be hitting for 200 damage, provided, of course, that there's a Stadium card in play. Again, very energetically expensive. I don't like the fact that it requires both Fighting and Psychic Energy cards. I mean, that makes it less playable. But I don't know, it's still a pretty nice card. I mean, it does have a very bulky 230 HP, and there was actually a spelling mistake on the Mega Mewtwo EX. So here you guys can actually see that it says Vanishing Strike, but on the full art version, I believe there was a spelling mistake. I'll show you guys when we go right ahead and get back to it. So let's go right ahead. Again, none of these Pokemon are really all that outstanding. Yeah, in fact, most of these Pokemon are pretty terrible. So let's go right ahead, scroll down a little bit, and now we're gonna go right ahead and discuss the Zoroark break. Again, it is following the trend in that it is a golden type Pokemon. Again, I really wish there was a bit of a variability. I mean, I don't know, a bronze type Pokemon, an emerald coated Pokemon, things like that I think would be really cool. So Zoroark break allows us to, of course, retain the attacks, abilities, weaknesses, resistance, and retreat cost of its previous evolutions. Foul play allows us to choose one of our opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. Again, I'm not really feeling this card because it's only restricted to our opponent's active Pokemon. That Pokemon can be downright awful, and I mean, it's just way too unreliable. So again, I don't see a whole lot of playability with the Zoroark break. We do, however, have the Zoroark as well, which has a pretty cool ability. So it allows us to switch this Pokemon with our active Pokemon during our turn. So that can be pretty cool. And it also has the Mind Jack attack. So maybe Zoroark Break will be somewhat viable in case we do want to take advantage of the Mind Jack, allowing us to hit for 10 damage plus 30 more damage for each Pokemon on our opponent's bench. Of course, this is heavily dependent on how many Pokemon our opponent does have in their bench. Would work very, very well with a deck that runs Pokemon such as the Mega Rayquaza EX. Any fully loaded bench, that is 150 damage plus 10 initial damage, and a Muscle Band that could allow us to get those big one-hit knockouts. So Zoroark may actually make the Zoroark Break a playable Pokemon. Again, I feel like the Foul Play is just a highly unreliable sort of attack, but in certain instances it can actually work out to be pretty powerful. So I don't know, I'm interested to see what players come up with this deck, but again, I feel like they're very situational cards. If our opponent does not have a big bench, we can't hit for a lot of damage. If our opponent does not have a very powerful active Pokemon or potentially an active Pokemon that is very dependent on lightning energy cards, for example, for its damage output, then that Zoroark won't be inflicting a whole lot of damage. So those are just some little things to keep in mind. At the very least, though, the Foul Play does only require a single Darkness energy card, so that could make it a bit more playable. And I could be just a little bit too harsh on that Pokemon. So let's go right ahead and scroll down a little bit. Again, these Pokemon are not all that great. Florges Break, I feel like, is one of the worst Break evolution Pokemon, just because it requires us to essentially evolve a total of 3 times, and it's not a grass type Pokemon either, so very, very difficult for us to bring it out. I don't really see it as being a highly playable card whatsoever. So we have the Flower Breeze ability on the Florges with the on the Florges Break, so this actually allows us to heal 30 damage from our active Pokemon and remove one special condition from it, so that can be kind of nice, but again, very, very difficult for us to bring it out. It actually does not have any attacks, so we're gonna have to rely on us making usage of some of the previous Pokemon's attacks. So Florges is actually really nice though, because again, it does allow us to retain the abilities of our previous evolutions, and the Florges has an ability as well. So it is the relaxing scent, allowing each of our fairy type Pokemon to be able to attack for 1 less fairy energy card. So that's kind of cool. We have the Wonder Shine, allowing us to hit for 70 damage, and at the same time our opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. We have the Magical Leaf, not that outstanding. Aroma C'est La Vie, that's not a good attack at all either. So this is one of those Pokemon that is probably best when it is on our bench, allowing us to be able to attack a little bit more energetically, allowing us to attack for a few less energy attachments, allowing us to heal our Pokemon and heal those status conditions. But again, guys, it's just very, very difficult for us to even bring it out in the first place. So I feel like this is by far one of the worst Break Pokemon. It would definitely be a lot more playable if it evolved from a stage 1 Pokemon. That would actually be kind of cool, but unfortunately there's just way too many evolution steps for us to ultimately bring out this Pokemon. I don't see a whole lot of playability for it. Yeah, that may be me just being harsh, but again, I'm not really feeling that card at all. So let's go right ahead and scroll down a little bit. This Cernia is not really outstanding. I mean, it's very energetically efficient in both instances. The Rainbow Force attack can be kind of unique, but it does require us to run a whole lot of different typing of Pokemon. So it allows us to hit for 30 more damage per each type of our bench Pokemon. So if you have a total of 5 different types of Pokemon, it can actually inflict a lot of damage. But again, it's somewhat energetically efficient, energetically expensive, so I don't think we're really going to see it in play a whole lot. It only has 120 HP as well. It has the Power Creation attack as well, allowing us to hit for 80 damage, and if we were able to recover a little bit of HP, this attack hits for 80 more damage. Yeah, I'm not really feeling this card, so let's go right ahead and scroll down a little bit. We have the Haxorus, which is actually really, really cool sort of Pokemon, in that it's one of its attacks are essentially eternal, and they essentially power up the Fracture permanently. So we have the Dragon Dance, and what it does is that each of this Haxorus's attacks do 100 more damage. This effect continues until this Pokemon leaves play, and you can't apply this effect to this Pokemon more than once at a time. So you can't just keep spamming Dragon Dance and then getting 700 damage knockouts or anything like that. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. But at the very least, this effect is long lasting, so as long as we can preserve the life of our Haxorus, we can hit for massive amounts of damage. We have Sharp Fang, which hits for 60 damage, only requires a single energy card of our choosing, so that's definitely kind of nice. And then we have the Dragon Pulse, allowing us to hit for 130 damage, and at the same time we are forced to discard the top 3 cards of our deck. Again, these attacks are very energetically efficient. It can also be very, very powerful, especially if we use the Dragon Dance. So it'll be interesting to see what Hexorus, what type of play this Pokemon sees. So moving on, guys, we have the Noctowl. And this, I feel like it's worth mentioning because it's one of those cards that, again, is just very, very dependent on the situation, and I don't really see them as being all that playable. So we have the Sky High, which allows us to hit for 20 damage times the number of item cards in both players' hands. So both ourselves and our opponent reveal our hands to each other, and then any item cards that we find there allows us to hit for 20 more damage per item. So, I mean, this card could be playable if we're running a whole lot of item cards. But, I mean, wouldn't you much rather run a Pokemon such as the Simisage and things like that that already inflicts 20 damage just times the number of cards that we have in our hand? At least that's my take on it. I don't really see this as being all that much of a playable card. So let's go right ahead and scroll down a little bit. No, Ursaring's not that great of a Pokemon, so I'm actually going to skip over it. We're going to go right ahead and discuss the Smeargle, guys, because it has a very unique ability. I'm interested to see how players are going to be taking advantage of it. Personally, I'm not entirely sure, but it can definitely work with certain decks, such as Ho-Ho EX decks and things like that. Anyways, we have the Recoding ability, allowing us to switch one basic energy card attached to our active Pokemon with one different basic energy card attached in our discard pile. One of the Pokemon that I think this may actually work quite well with is the Mega Mewtwo EX that you guys saw required Psychic energy cards and Fighting energy cards. Smeargle can make life a lot easier for it. Again, there's definitely a lot of different strategies that the Smeargle can work well with, especially decks, for example, that run a lot of different typings of Pokemon. So yeah, it's actually a pretty cool card. Again, I'm not really sure the extent and how powerful this card is going to be, but I'm sure there's going to be players taking advantage of it, and I'm sure this is a card that you guys are going to have to look out for, because I feel like a lot of players will be underestimating it, and some very intelligent players will be able to take advantage of this ability to its max. So yeah, so I'm actually really feeling that Smeargle. We're also getting a reprint of the Float Stone. This time it is just a massive little rock. Again, you guys are quite familiar with what this card does. So the Pokemon that this card is attached to has absolutely no retreat cost. Of course, the Pokemon that this card tended to get attached to the most was, of course, the Caldio EX, which is no longer a part of the standard format. So Float Stone is still a very good card, still works very well with a lot of different types of decks, definitely a card that we will be seeing a whole lot of. Then we have the Gallade Spirit Links and the Mewtwo Spirit Links. Again, not a card that really needs a whole lot of discussing. We have the Bridget, very interesting supporter card, allows us to search our deck for a single basic EX Pokemon. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. I feel like people would just rather use the Pokemon Fan Club instead, or search for up to a total of 3 basic Pokemon, excluding EX Pokemon, and then we could go right ahead and put them on our bench. Yeah, so I feel like the only logical sort of route with respects to running this card is if you're running a deck that runs a lot more non-EX Pokemon. Those are the ones that you'd like to ideally bring out into play. Otherwise, just go and stick with a Pokemon Fan Club. It allows us to choose any 2 Pokemon cards of your choosing. So I mean, it's interesting if you're running a deck heavily composed of non-EX Pokemon, such as Combee, Vespiquen decks, Evolution decks, things like that, then the Bridget is a supporter card that would work really well with them. If you're gonna look for basic EX Pokemon for the most part, then you probably should not be running this card in your deck at all. Perilous City is a very, very cool stadium card, guys. It's actually a stadium card that is harmful to both ourselves and our opponent. So we have the top effect, so the player that this card is facing can only have 3 bench Pokemon. So text upside down, so whoever is your opponent essentially would be feeling the brunt of this effect. So we restrict them to only have 3 bench Pokemon. This completely negates certain strategies. I mean, Mega Rayquaza EX decks, Raichu decks, things like that. They lose a tremendous amount of their power. So that is a very, very powerful sort of effect, but at the same time we have the bottom effect as well. So that's essentially us, and the player that this card is facing has their fire, water, and grass Pokemon's attacks do 20 less damage. So very, very interesting card, guys. I'm not sure how many of these players are going to be running. Again, it can be very harmful to us if we're running at least fire, water, and grass type Pokemon in our decks. If we're not, then this card can just be very, very harmful to our opponents, and at the same time, it can allow us to discard their stadium cards. Because I know there's certain decks that don't really run well with a lot of stadium cards, but if you just want to run stadium cards for the sake of getting rid of your opponents, then this may be the card to go with. So we will be seeing the Parallel City getting a print in the Blue Impact set. So definitely a very interesting card. I'm very interested to see how players take advantage of it. Then we have the Rainbow Energy, a very familiar card, allows us to essentially attach it to any Pokemon at the same time that Pokemon is able to essentially the Rainbow Energy can count as any different type of energy card. So if we have a fighting type Pokemon that needs a fighting energy, that's what it's going to be. If we have a fairy Pokemon that needs a fairy energy, that is what the Rainbow Energy is going to be. But keep in mind that whenever we do attach the Rainbow Energy to one of our Pokemon, we do have to put one damage counter on that Pokemon. So that is a bit of a drawback to this energy card. We have the Glalie EX in the full art set, so it looks kind of nice. It's sort of looking down on you. I mean, Glalie X has always been a very, very creepy Pokemon to me. I feel like to me it sort of looks like the Freddy from those horror movies, you know, the one with the really long sort of not fingernails. I can't recall what you'd like to call it, but essentially the Wolverine little. Anyways, before I embarrass myself further, we're gonna go right ahead and move on to the Mega Glalie EX. Again, it also has a full art print as well. Looks pretty menacing. Cryo Mount. Again, not a Mega EX Pokemon that I'm really feeling. Again, I am personally looking forward to a lot more of the Red Flash EX and Mega EX Pokemon. Then we have the Mewtwo EX. Of course, just lots and lots of different types of Mewtwo EXs. I'm actually really loving the artwork behind this one. I mean, that Mewtwo EX looks furious. It looks very deadly as well. And then we have the Mega Mewtwo EX as well. Very, very cool. I'm actually really loving the artwork between these two Mewtwo EXs and Mega Mewtwo EXs, as opposed to the other ones. Again, as I mentioned before, that other Mega Mewtwo EX, to me, looks sort of like a big baby. Again, I'm sorry if that offends any of you. Please don't angrily spam my comments like, Mike, what are you saying? I love that Mega Mewtwo EX, you're stupid, things like that. So anyways, let's go right ahead and take a look at some remaining cards. So sorry, they weren't minimizing. You have the Bridget reprint as well. Looks pretty nice. I mean, definitely nice full artwork. A bit of a seductive little pose here as well. So let's hope that doesn't give any children any types of ideas. And then, of course, we have the Mewtwo EX, which I think has just some terrible artwork. Again, what the heck is this Mewtwo EX doing? It has, of course, the exact same attacks as the other Mewtwo EX. I mean, I don't know what to say, guys. It seems like Ash after winning a battle. That's my take on it. It's just very demeaning of the Mewtwo EX. Mewtwo EX is just a very mysterious, cool sort of Pokemon, and I feel like these two respective Mewtwo EX cards take away a lot from that. So that is pretty much the Blue Impact set, and then we have the Raichu and Noivern Break deck. So I know this is a very long review, and I'm sorry if you guys feel like you need a break. Please feel free to go right ahead and take it one. But this set conclusion will soon be coming to an end. So let's go right ahead and take a look at the Raichu Break. Again, a golden Pokemon, 130 HP. I feel like this Raichu is probably going to get used a whole lot more in combination with the other Raichu that allows us to hit for lots and lots of damage, times the number of bench Pokemon that we have. This Raichu can potentially hit for 170 damage, and at the same time we are forced to discard all energy cards attached to this Pokemon. So I feel like this is a Pokemon card that would work quite well with the Magnet Zone, just allowing us to attach as many lightning energy cards onto this Pokemon as possible. We also have the Raichu, which has a pretty cool attack, I would say, the Thunder Judgment, allowing us to hit for 50 damage to each of our opponent's Pokemon EX. So that can be very, very powerful. Electric Smash, though, it's not a good attack by any means, but I still prefer the other Raichu that allows us to hit for 20 damage times the number of bench Pokemon that we have at play. So I think that's pretty much the Raichu that a lot of people will be favoring, but it could actually be nice to run a one-off copy of this Raichu as well. Again, being able to hit each of our opponent's EX Pokemon for 50 damage, never know, that could actually pay off. That could actually allow us to get those big knockouts. It could actually work really well with, again, a bat line or some sort of deck that allows us to pick off our opponent's bench Pokemon. So anyways, that's all I really want to say about the Raichu Break. So let's go right ahead and go down a little bit. We have the Friendly Rescue. I don't think anyone is really gonna run this card at all. So it allows both players to choose one Pokemon card, one Pokemon from their discard pile and put it into their hand. I'm not really keen on helping out my opponent unless there's a Pokemon that has such high importance in my deck that I'm willing to include this card in my deck regardless. So in a lot of instances, I would say that this card is not good, but again, there are certain decks that just run some Pokemon that again have such crucial importance that it may just be worthwhile running. So I'm not really keen on this card, but you never know. I'm sure some players are going to come up with a sort of strategy behind it. And then we have the Noivern Break, again allows us to retain the attacks of the previous evolutions. I feel like this would probably work best with the Noivern from the I can't remember what set. I believe it's the Fierce Fist set, the one with the echolocation ability, allowing us to essentially potentially negate attacks. Our opponent does have to flip a coin. I definitely think that is the better Noivern as opposed to this one. I mean, this one, this Noivern has the tuning attack, allowing us to shuffle our hand into our deck to draw a number of cards equal to the number of cards in our opponent's hand. That's not good. And then we have the Air Slash attack, allowing us to hit for 120 damage. And at the same time, we're forced to discard an energy card attached to this Pokemon. Again, that's not really that good. I definitely think that this Noivern Break should be used with the Noivern Dragon type with the Echolocation ability. Anyways, this Noivern Break has the Synchro Woofer attack, allowing us to hit for 70 damage. And if the number of cards in our hand and our opponent's is the same, this attack does 80 more damage. So it can be nice for finishing off certain types of Pokemon. Again, I don't think it should be paired up with this Noivern in any way whatsoever. So yeah, I believe that's it. I don't think there's anything else for us to really discuss. Actually, let's take a quick look at the reserve ticket trainer card. We're also getting a few reprints as well. So for cards such as the Town Map, Judge, Fisherman, and Super Rod. But you know what, I may actually discuss those as well. So anyways, reserve ticket allows us to flip a coin, and if heads, we're able to search our deck for any card, and we put that card on top of our deck. Why? If this was a card that was somewhat like computer search and we were able to draw onto that card, then it could actually be a feasible card. But it puts the card on top of our deck. I don't like that a single bit. I don't think this is really a card that I'll be running at all. So anyways, we have the Town Map as well, so let's go right ahead and take a look at that. So Town Map essentially I don't know why this card is beside it, but anyways, Town Map allows us to essentially look at our prize cards. So this is getting a reprint. You guys of course are quite familiar with what this card does. We have the Judge card as well, which essentially, I believe it's similar as the second Judge card. So anyways, what it does is that it forces both ourselves and our opponent to shuffle our cards back into our deck, and then we both draw until we have 4 cards in our hand. So this can be a very nice card again when we run it at cards such as the Noivern, which we just saw, other cards that inflict more damage when both ourselves and our opponent have the same number of cards. I feel like this is a card that is going to see a lot of play actually, because it can be disruptive. It can be a card that is somewhat similar to the N that we saw earlier, of course, which no longer is in the standard format. Then we have the Fisherman as well. I'm actually not sure about the effect of this card. I'm sorry, guys. It is in Japanese, but I can't recall. I mean, I've definitely played with the Fisherman a couple of times, but I'm sorry, I can't actually recall its ability, so my apologies about that. And of course, we have the Super Rod as well, which allows us to search for up to any 3 cards from our discard pile, and then we go right ahead and shuffle them back into our deck. So this can be in combination of item type cards and Pokemon cards as well. So Super Rod is actually pretty cool. And it's actually one of the cards that I'm really looking forward to. It's basically a much better version of the Sacred Ash. So yeah, that is going to be my set review, guys. Again, I'm really sorry. I know it was a little bit long, and in some instances I was rambling, but I really hope you guys found this helpful. Again, I'm looking a lot more forward to the red flash cards as opposed to the blue impact cards, but I do believe we're getting them just as one big set called the Breakthrough set in the English version. So yeah, that is going to be it. Again, thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to hit the like and the subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out my annotations for some previous videos, a random video as well. Be sure to check out my Twitter and my Facebook page. I'll be providing the links for those in the description section down below in case you guys want to be eligible for giveaways, things like that. And also, I have a new YouTube channel as well, so please be sure to check that out. And yeah, so that is going to be it, guys. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.